Because I am human, I have made a lot of mistakes in my life. I'll bet you have too. Now that I'm 51, I have a bit of perspective. I understand that mistakes and setbacks can be frustrating, but they're not at the end of the world. Because I'm a personal finance writer, I think most often about financial mistakes and setbacks. In my case, for instance, I spent most of my young adulthood deep in debt. When I was in college, I got into a bad habit of using credit cards, not to support things that I needed, but to buy things that I wanted. I had over $20,000 in credit card debt, and then eventually over $35,000 in consumer debt. And that was a mistake. At the time, it felt onerous. I mean, it felt awful to be in that much debt. And it would be easy to look back now and say, oh, I should never have done that. It would be easy to look back and regret the fact that I ever did get in debt. But the reality is, I am out of debt now, and the process of getting out of debt taught me a lot of things. I'm a lot better with money than I used to be. And I know that if I hadn't gone through that experience, I wouldn't have an understanding of what other people feel like to be in debt, what it's like for them to struggle. In many ways, buying the house that I have now was a huge financial mistake. It has been a money pit. We have poured a couple of $100,000 into making repairs and upgrades. And we think we're mostly done now, maybe all the way done. But financially, this has been a mistake. And I'll admit, there are times that it does stress me out. But for the most part, I have to look at this as a sunk cost. I have already made these expenses. The question is, what's the best decision going forward? And in this case, Kim and I both agree that the best decision is to stay in this home. We like the home. We hope that most of the expenses are done. And the best option seems to be to stay here and to just enjoy it. When I was first learning how to invest in the stock market, I made plenty of mistakes. I made so many boneheaded moves that lost me money. Before I figured out that the best way for me to approach investing was to use index mutual funds that just track the movement of the stock market. Now that I've bought into that and accepted that and realized that I don't have to try to outguess the market, my investments have gone great. What's my advice for if you make a mistake or suffer a setback, especially a financial mistake or setback? Well, number one, don't panic. Stay calm. A lot of times when we discover a mistake or we experience a setback, we try to make sudden moves, and these can just lead to making matters worse. We dig the hole deeper. So stay calm, be patient, take time to think about the situation rationally. This leads to the second point, which is do take the time to actually figure out what is the situation, what is the impact of the mistake, and what are all the variables involved. Then, based on this information, you go to step 3, which is using the information, consider what your options are. Think about what your goals are, where you want to go, what you want to do, and figure out which options are available to help you move towards that goal. If we're talking about finances, say for example, you're saving for a house and you're in a car accident or something, figure out what your options are to help steer you back towards saving for a house. Once you've addressed the situation in the present, to take care of the mistakes you made in the immediate past, your next step is to figure out how are you going to handle similar situations in the future. This goes back to one of my core beliefs in Get Rich Slowly, and that is that you should build barriers between you and bad behavior and then try to automate good behavior. Make it easy to do the right thing, but difficult to do the wrong thing. This is also why, for a long time, I kept my checking account and my savings account at different banks. This was a way to construct a barrier between me and spending. The money that I was using to get out of debt, the money that I was saving, I would deposit in my savings account, and then I would transfer money over to my checking account on an as-needed basis. This prevented me from being able to spend in the moment. To summarize, when you're faced with a mistake or a setback, first pause, take a breath, then take stock of the situation, figure out what actually has happened, figure out what you need to do to solve the problem. Once you've done this, and once you've begun taking steps to solve the problem, then figure out how you can prevent or mitigate the problem in the future. I want to point out that one of the worst things you can do when you've made a mistake or experienced a setback is to double down on the behavior that puts you in that situation. It can be very tempting to get defensive and to react more strongly by digging in your heels and standing your ground. But if you've made a mistake and it's causing problems, this is the opposite of what you want to do. It's okay to admit that you messed up. You're human. We make mistakes. When you suffer setbacks, when you make mistakes, don't panic. It's all good. Do your best to learn from the situation and to become a better person. Mistakes happen to all of us. It's how we handle them that matters.